Really quickly, I'm Mac McKelvey. I'm the founder and CEO of SalientMG, strategic marketing firm. We program the morning here with our partners at Infillion. And I'm very honored to actually be moderating this session. I have an incredible panel, and these folks are going to bring some really great insights for all of us. So this session is called The Rise of the Media Network. So please join me in welcoming Sam Palmer. Sam is the president of Chase Media Solutions at JP Morgan Chase. We have Monique Perlmutter, managing vice president of Marriott Media, and Kristen DiCarletto, head of marketing, CVS Media Exchange.
Thank you.
Okay. If anyone did not know, I have one more fun fact for you. We learned that yesterday was France was the hottest place in the world. Just so you know. Saw it this morning. So there's another fun fact in conversation start. Look at all these conversation starters I'm giving you today, right? So many. We are going to get started talking about the rise of media networks. Everybody ready? Let's jump in. Quick audience poll, because this is, if I can't get your attention just by talking to you, I'm going to make you answer my questions. How many of you have invested in retail media over the past year? Raise your hand. All right, there's a couple, I like it. How many expect retail media network investments to increase over the next 2 years? Okay, well, that's the setup, folks. Let's talk about 5 years ago. Most people associated media networks with retail. Today, we're seeing growth across banking, travel, and again, across healthcare and many, many more sectors. What's driving this evolution? Who wants to jump in?
I'll jump in. I think the changes that we're seeing are reflecting this shift from renting consumer attention to earning relevance, which really comes through like the development of these trusted consumer behaviors. And we're able to do that through the data that we bring forward and some of those outcomes that we're able to deliver, not just for the brands, but also for the consumer. We're personalization networks, if you really think about it, because of the first-party data that we have. So that's my hot take on why we've seen this evolution over the last 5 years.
I think the couple things that have changed is, number one, marketers are held to a higher standard. And whereas, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, you were able to get by with what I call vanity metrics, right? Cost per reach, and I, had all of these impressions, amazing, look at how amazing my results are. Today, we have to show real ROI, and this is what media networks with first-party data are able to provide. And then the other side of the equation is consumers are also getting much more sophisticated at tuning out and avoiding ads, offers, and content that just doesn't drive value. And media networks are able to be much more precise in bringing that value to the consumer.
Yeah, and I think just building off what Monique was saying about trust as well, I think that I'm sitting on a panel with amazing, trusted brands. And I think that is at the heart of everything that we do, is if we don't have the trust in our customers, we are nothing really to our brands that we partner with or our customers. And we have to be really intentional about how we continue to earn that trust every day. At CMX, we have over 94 million extra care customers. We have the longest standing retail loyalty program in the industry. And we have to continue to maintain that trust with those customers and deliver on a personalized and trusted experience with the brands that we partner with every day. So we have to be really intentional as well as to how we grow our media network, but also the brands and the messages that we put in front of our customers.
I seriously thought you were going to say we have the longest receipts in the business, and I was absolutely going to agree with that.
Mac, you should be signed up for digital receipts.
You think I might be in marketing.
Digital receipts, Mac. Save the earth.
Go ahead, Sam.
I love, Kristen, what you're talking about in terms of the trust, right? Because without that consumer side of the equation, we don't have anything. And I think this is also when we talk to merchants, to the brands that advertise, it's very important for the brands to understand that the role of the media network is not just to throw as many things as the customer as possible, because that erodes that trust. And then that, by the way, means that everyone on the network, including the brand that's asking for it, is losing. So being able to understand when to reach a customer and when not to. My favorite word this week is restraint. Is not just because you can reach a customer doesn't mean that you should, right? So being clear with the brands around that, I think, is an insight for me.
Yeah, that's great.
So a little bit of an elephant. Let's have a little controversial question here, because I love that on a panel. Some in the industry would would say that working with media networks can be complex or are a fragmented experience for them. These are the marketers. What do you say to that? Is that the case? Is it evolving? Is working with any of your media networks less fragmented and easier for the marketers? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I definitely think it can be perceived that way, and it can be fragmented. I think a lot of times that brands need education about how to partner with a media network. There's many different options to partner with CMX. We have a self-service offering, which can feel very fragmented because it's more channel-based, versus a managed service offering where you actually have a dedicated industry manager who is a partner in really identifying your brand's goals and objectives, recommending strategically the audiences and media channels to reach and meet those objectives, putting together a omni-channel plan that reaches customers outside of our channels, on our channels, and in our store, and really working together and being transparent about everything that's going into the media plan, how we're optimizing it real time, coming up with strategic recommendations post-campaign, not just delivering the measurement, but actually making strategic recommendations for how to improve, and also being really transparent when we do alphas and betas together about what are our goals and objectives that we're going into this, and being okay with not everything working and sticking as well.
I think what I like the most about what you were saying is kind of this customization that comes through. I think you have to cater the message to the platform and to the experience that those consumers are having when they're on that platform. So that will create this sense of fragmentation, but then we can kind of tie it all up by delivering measurement that meets our partners where they're at. So what third-party measurement solutions are they utilizing, and how can we provide that data to them so they have an apples to apples way to look across all of the platforms. So I think there's some ways that we can get ahead of the fragmentation in the end, but some of the personalization of the content and the messaging is what makes it perform so well and why the consumers like it, and it gives us that it gets over the just because you can doesn't mean you should mentality.
Well, and I think that restraint point that you made before is really an important one. I'll ask, instead of having you chime in on this one, I'll say what's exciting. So that's like the negative view, right? For marketers, and I think you were just getting to this, Monique, but what is exciting now in working with retail media networks or any media network that didn't exist,
Sure. So with Chase Media Solutions, we're super easy to work with.
Definitely not fragmented.
We have
Definitely
a sales team,
yes,
we have an accounts
got it.
team, we have a servicing team, we got you. But in all seriousness, I think that what's important for marketers is to think, what is it really that you're getting from the media network, and where does it fit in your advertising spend? Because again, if you're thinking about the old version of the funnel, and I'm going to go out there and build reach, that's not the path. But what media networks can give to you is narrowing down, and I don't think about it even as find a customer with a more personalized message. It's be more efficient with my marketing spend, right? Because it's filtering out for the consumers the noise around what they want to see, and therefore for the marketer, it is eliminating reaching people who are not ready to purchase or not ready, they're not in that intent moment. So that's the way that I would think. And if as a marketer, I look at my marketing spend and I can say, okay, this is my ROI for this section, and I actually can eliminate a chunk of spend and reach a customer that's in the intent moment, that's what a media network can provide. And as my panelist said over here, with true ROI, true measurement, that that individual has actually purchased something, and that is incremental to what otherwise would have happened. I personally don't know a better way to reach consumers.
I was just going to build off that as well, is that it really has to be about that transparency and in the measurement. And we actually just started to partner with Circana on rest of market reporting as well. So it's one thing to be able to close the loop in your own box and in your own store or online business. But then how do you actually help the brands understand what that impact of that ad was outside of your retail location as well? And so how do we actually share with them what they're used to seeing, right? Is like when they run an ad, where does that customer go in the entire retail ecosystem? And we actually, with some of the initial campaigns that we've run, have actually seen a 60% lift outside of CVS, while our internal team, right, our merchants inside of CVS don't love that stat. It is showing that it's driving brand growth. It's showing that it's driving unit movement across the entire retail ecosystem as well.
But going back to how marketers are, it's harder and harder for us, but talking about that, right, that you are influencing that purchase, even though they're not still on the CVS experience, that you have influenced that, and then having that attribution data is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Monique, anything to add to that?
No, I think the data shows that a consumer needs over 10 different touch points to drive brand recall and unaided brand awareness. That's not nothing. So if you can catch them at all of these different moments in their journey and then be able to report on which touch points delivered the value, I think that's very helpful for a marketer to see as well.
Well, that's it. That's one of the promises, right? Being closer to the customer in that moment of decision, or in that moment where they're doing the key research that will drive that purchase decision. I mean, I'm assuming at Chase, you're spending a lot of time looking at that to really understand what is that data, what are those signals that are leading you to believe they're closer to that purchase decision.
Let me give an example of that. So we've recently partnered with a direct-to-consumer brand, and the question for the marketer, I came from a brand. I used to lead Chase Sapphire, so I understand what the marketer wants to achieve. And the question for the direct-to-consumer brand was, we want new customers, and not just new, incremental customers that we wouldn't have otherwise had if they just happened to walk by our platform. So we partnered with this brand. We worked on data collaboration. So we actually compared their customers, their existing customers, to the customers that are with Chase and the spend that we have with Chase. And we were able to deliver to them almost 400% lift in new incremental sales. So that is the power that we're talking about, and that is true ROI that as an ex-brand owner, I can take directly to the bank and say, this is new incremental revenue that I otherwise wouldn't have had.
I think the incrementality piece is what's interesting, and that's another differentiator for media networks, is how do we create these incremental opportunities for brands to engage with consumers. So on the travel side, we recently completed a research study to understand the psychology of travel. As you go through the different stages, your mindset shifts, the product needs shift, and it impacts how you're searching for different products. And what we discovered is what consumers are on site, they're 85% more likely to make an unplanned impulse purchase. It's this like,
I feel attacked.
YOLO, money doesn't matter.
Attacked.
I spent all my money on the flight and
99%
hotel already.
chance in my house.
And so how do we capture that attention when they're on site? So it's building the relevant message to each moment. And we actually ran a campaign for a beverages partner last year with a youth sports angle, and we saw a 7.5% lift of sales of that product on property during that time when they saw the ad in their hotel room. So it's the right moment, the right consumer, and the right message. Hey, you're going to a tournament, forgot your beverage, go downstairs and pick it up. And that was a huge impact. So I think there are these incremental moments that the media networks can create for brands to engage with consumers across their daily life.
Creating the moments. I really love that, actually. Did you have something to add to that, Kristen?
No,
Okay, because I want to actually come back to something that you said, Sam, because I think we were talking before about, as you think about the media networks, it really is about the marketer, the consumer. It's all those points. Like, how do you put all of that together? How you create the moments, but how do you look at the data that's going to tell you this is the time, right? This is the time to show restraint. This is the time to get them down there to buy the Powerade or whomever it was, right? How do you know when the restraint should come in? I guess that's the better way to say it.
That is the magic sauce.
So you're not going to tell us.
Well,
Okay.
in all honesty, it is through experimentation, right? And it is the quality of the data that each of our networks has. So with Chase, we have the benefit of understanding the consumer journey across multiple touch points. So if I travel and it's not just, hey, I'm researching for a hotel in Cannes. Okay, that's a signal. But with my credit card, I bought a flight to Cannes. Okay, that is a clear signal which allows me to know that probably I'm going to need a hotel. So now I'm further along that journey. Okay, I now can buy a hotel. Excellent, I'm going to be in Cannes, probably, and I know exactly which dates. Probably I'm in Target for one of the restaurants over here, right? So you can see how you can really follow the journey of a consumer, and you can apply that same logic to any other example. And those are the moments where you can decide what, where, and again, restraint, right, as we spoke earlier. And I think that's also in particular very important. You know, we talk about AI, and you know, very quickly we're going to be in a world where delivering the right message at the right time with a personalized, creative, you know, everything to the segment of one, all the buzzwords, right? That's a commodity, right? Everybody's going to be able to do that. So the question is, if that becomes a commodity, judgment, restraint, and by the way, taste, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever you program into these systems, it's a reflection of the taste, quote unquote, of that network, and it goes back to the value that you drive to the consumer. And if you drive value there, that's where it starts, that's where it ends. Then you can then have the other side of the network with the merchants.
I have a question, Kristen, then thinking about that in your world. So discoverability would probably be a big piece of what you're
Huge,
bringing
yeah.
to the table, right? Because there's
Yes.
a lot of product within CVS. And how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, we really think about where discoverability happens, and it's no longer, right, the old pyramid or funnel, I should say. The journey to purchase and discovery is, you know, very fragmented. It's, you know, in and out of the store. It used to be the old days, I feel like when I started, people would do a lot of discovery in social and on their app, and then, you know, be driven in store, you know, within a few hours to make that purchase. Now discovery is actually happening in store, and that's a huge thing that we're really trying to be able to communicate to our brand partners around our in-store network. So we have screens both in the pharmacy waiting areas, at our point of sale checkout, in our front store screens. We have an audio network. And a lot of times, what we're finding, both through customer intercepts in store as well as research and ultimately the behavior and purchase, is that they come in with an intent to buy one purchase or to go to one category, and they're making that decision at the shelf. And so brands need to be able to communicate not just price and value and the cost of the product, but what is the overall value of that product, and how does it better meet the needs of what that consumer is looking for when they come in to discover that product and ultimately convert to a new brand that they might not have previously tried. The other piece is experiential, and we hear this, which is huge from our brand partners as well, is the more that they can get the product into the customer's hands and tell them the story about the product. And so now we've actually started to partner with brands who have large sponsorships like World Cup, PGA, Boston Marathon, and actually doing store activations around those moments as well. So how can we bring the store not only inside the store but outside the store, to the parking lot, to the sidewalk, and drive unit movement that day, that weekend, and actually show lift, but we're having it surround sound with that omni-channel digital campaign as well.
I actually want to keep going on this point, both with you, Monique, and Sam. So you just said it. It's like where media and commerce and customer experience all come together. So from a media network lens, do you want to talk about how you think that way? How do you think that through?
So we're also looking at it from the lens of all of these moments are kind of intertwined, and you see people learning about a product and learning about a need and making a purchase within seconds now. There's no longer this long consideration window, and so if you catch them in the moment where they may need it, that is when you can really influence. So some examples of, similarly on the travel journey, we're able to understand when is somebody about to make a trip to a warm weather destination. Maybe they're 2 to 4 weeks out from a trip to Mexico. That's a likely person who's gonna need sunscreen. They're gonna need a swimsuit. They're gonna need, you know, beach outfits. If they're coming to Cannes, they're gonna need 5 portable fans. And so I think it's how do you put the right message in front of them before they even start driving that consideration. And then also when they're on their trip, for us specifically, how do you provide that surprise and delight on the property? Our property almost provides that like in-store experience to some extent. And so when they check in, do we have a sample kit for parents of, you know, some products that they might need that just adds value to their trip? So it really goes back to bringing the commerce and the brand into this joyful moment, and that is what the consumer is going to remember. So that's kind of how we're trying to tie it together.
And I think that if you do it well as a network, the network itself becomes a brand. So let me explain what I mean. Because what happens is that as a customer, every time I come in, if you delight me, if you surprise me, wow, I needed that, thank you. You now cultivate trust. And if I trust you as a network, you can pass that trust to the merchants on the platform, because the merchants that you've selected now essentially carry that trust. And as a consumer, I know that, oh, wow, okay, you recommended it to me, therefore there is value in it, right? So again, that goes back to being very thoughtful on when, what, when to, and when not to.
I was just listening and hearing over and over. It is really customer engagement. That is what you're selling. For the customer is the marketer, and the customer for the consumer, because you're creating something full circle for both. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so one of the biggest promises is the data. Let's actually go back to some of the data. How is the data evolving, and how are you thinking about how the data will continue to evolve? And is there a dream set of data you'd love to have one day that's not ick? It doesn't give the ick, right? Because that's the restraint.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. And I mentioned like the 94 million extra care customers, and now we've actually expanded our data set to the 144 million customers that come into our store every year as well. So just, again, those signals that we get, even though we don't have an extra care card tied to that individual, we're able to get signals on that person based just on their behaviors in the store as well. I mean, even as we're talking here, I think, and going back to the question around fragmentation, is how do we all get better together, right? Like, we're all in the media space together. We're not, direct competitors. So how do we get better together? How do we actually start to think about sharing our own data sets, right? From the signals that each of us get. I think both panelists gave great examples of travel. And that journey could start, at renewing your passport, right? At CVS, buying travel-sized products, booking that hotel, booking that flight,
on their Chase
right?
card.
So all of these things, correlate together, and how do we create a larger value proposition in the market that makes it less fragmented for brands and actually has a strong value prop together, and how the data end to end works the strongest together, and all of the signals come together in a really strong way.
I would say that's the dream,
Yes.
right? Is how do we drive some of this connectivity for the consumer, so all
right.
the touch points build, getting back to that 10 plus, but also for the advertiser, like you said, it removes that fragmentation, which is interesting for them, because we have 283 million global members, and I'm sure there's overlap between the two. So when that person needs that sunscreen, how do they find that? We have 1.5 million per night in our hotels. We're a hospitality network, so we want to deliver a positive experience, and connecting the dots for those consumers does that. So that would be the wish, is how do we bring more partnership, I guess, across networks.
Any opinions, Sam?
In agreement.
It's fair. I love that, because we are huge fans of innovation. So thinking about, even you look back to when you guys were all in the mainstream now, like you are, but I get excited about the innovation in the space, and I'm glad you brought up AI, because I was going to ask about that, like what is the role of AI, but I think you kind of answered it, which is it's pushing us all towards so much sameness, where we have table stakes. What is going to be above that? It's going to be the experience. I'm hearing a lot about experience and engagement and putting the consumer in the center, then the marketers win.
Yeah, I think on the AI front as well, it's how you're using it internally, right? That's like the non-sexy piece. Like, our brand partners want to know, how fast can you move? Like, it used to take us, 4 to 6 weeks when we first stood up CMX 6 years ago to create a custom audience. Right now, we can do it in days. We can create a media plan in hours, right? Based on those audiences, we can deploy a campaign within a week, and with custom creative. So it's just, how are you using the AI also in-house to actually make the teams more efficient and more strategic, but also how do you start to upskill your teams to be able to move into those more strategic roles, and let the machine learning, move quickly with human oversight to make sure that, again, that we're, doing the best possible thing for the customer at the end of the day.
I'm going to open up any questions. I know we're pretty much out of time, but if anyone have any questions, oh, we have one right here. Does anyone have a microphone? Because if not, I will hop down. I'm hopping down. Here we go, Nick.
Two-part question, if that's all right. But first, I have to acknowledge my wife and I do all our banking with Chase. There's mortgages, car loans, investments, credit cards. I'm a Bonvoy loyalist.
Thank
And
you very
then
much.
both my wife and my sister are pharmacists who started their careers at CVS, so that extends to our loyalty to CVS.
Yeah. This is a curated panel.
Audience curation.
So my question is, early on, specifically with retail, shelf space was tied to media spend with CPG brands. What is the equivalent of that outside of retail with other networks? And if there isn't a direct equivalent, has that incentive kind of started to diminish in favor of everything else the brand gets with first-party data and everything?
Yeah. I mean, I can start kind of on the retail side is that at CVS, we've actually never correlated shelf space to media spend. I think it's more, for us, it's more about bringing all of the brand parties together. And so we really need to get away from the shopper trade dollars in order to grow for the entire enterprise. And so how do we bring the shopper teams, the brand teams, and their agency partners to the table and actually talk about brand growth strategies? And how do we make sure that they understand that the investment they're making is helping them grow their brand not only at CVS, but outside of CVS as well? And so it's really about creating a shared value prop going into annual planning each year.
I think about it in a flipped way. I live in New York City. Have you been to a Chinese restaurant when you get a menu and you flip and you flip and you flip and you flip and it's like, wow, amazing. We have so much choice. How is not helpful, right? Then you'd see where I'm going with this, right? So I think this is where the power of the media network is not to create a shelf space. Here's all the things that you could be interested in. And by the way, use an AI bot to activate all of your offers. And then just in case you might hit one, right? Or actually reduce that number, remove the noise for the customer. And again, I go back to that customer because when clients come over to the Chase mobile app, oftentimes the primary objective is not shopping and offers, right? Even though that's my business. You're coming in because you want to check your statement, check your balance, right? You want to focus on your money, and then you're now in that state of mind, and if I can reduce noise and share something with you that is right on the money, that's where the value is. But that's difficult because the natural tendency is, well, the model says all of these things are relevant. You went to Aspen 2 weeks ago, therefore let me show you skis for the next 6 months, right? It's just, doesn't work, so.
My husband's in the audience, and I see him nodding. We talk about this quite a lot. Folks, I want to just thank our panelists so much for their insights today. If you have any other questions for them, please grab them after. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.